So today I wanted to do something a little bit nerdy. This is one for the nerds out there, essentially, because we're going to take a kind of preview of the Final Four at Champs, but with a kind of map veto look at it. Okay, that's what we're really taking a look at here. And so we're just going to dive in. By the way, Champs does start 2 hours earlier than it has prior. Okay, so don't miss the games tomorrow, because whatever time they've been starting at your time, just know that they start 2 hours earlier than that. Let's talk about Fnatic and their map pool, right? So what we've got here is the maps, obviously, what they've banned, what they've picked, their second bans, and my rating out of 10 here down the right-hand side, which is very subjective, by the way. Feel free to disagree with it. And then how many times they've won it at Champs, right? So how many times have they won out of how many times they've played. So for Fnatic, you can see that Sunset is their permaban. The one time they didn't ban Sunset was when DRX banned it first. In terms of what they've picked, they've actually been picking Ascent, Bind, Haven once, and they've second banned Corrode 3 times. Lotus, obviously Fnatic Lotus, has always been pretty good. Their Haven, you know, they've won 3 out of 3 times so far at Champs. I think they'll probably feel pretty decent about their Haven. Abyss, they've won 2 out of 2 as well. I don't think their Abyss is, you know, impervious to being anti-stratted or something, right? They do play the breach there. I do think there is, you know, some weakness there if they were to go there again. Bind and Corrode, I still think are okay for Fnatic. Corrode, they were actually okay at it in EMEA, but clearly they don't love it that much because they're second banning it a lot. And then Sunset is their permaban. When you take a look at NRG, their opponents, very interesting in terms of their bans. They too have a permaban of Sunset. And the one time they didn't ban it was against DRX, who banned Sunset for them. And so they banned Abyss because DRX are very good at Abyss. For NRG, they are picking Corrode and they are second banning Bind a lot. NRG have done a really good job of kind of avoiding maps like their Ascent and Bind and Sunset are 3 maps which for a while they've, you know, kind of tried to avoid, especially Bind and Sunset. You know, the fact that no one has picked Bind into NRG, I think is helping them quite a lot because they haven't been that good at Bind all year. Right, it's just not a map that they love, so they've managed to avoid it pretty well overall there, NRG, and it's led them obviously to this point. Now let's do a theoretical map veto. This is me listing the teams' maps from 1 to 7. Now this is not scientific in any way. I'm sure the teams might have slightly differences if they were to do it themselves. Of course, they got more information than me, but just looking at it, it is very interesting because both teams ban Sunset. Right, that's their permaban. Now, when you get those kind of games and those situations, what you'll often find is the teams don't, you know, really want to go and permaban your permaban against someone else who has that permaban because you're just wasting a ban a lot of the time, right? And you've also had 3 days to prepare. I think what most likely is going to happen is someone will second ban it. But with that said, the ban for Fnatic, I think, is pretty obvious if they're not banning Sunset. They should ban Corrode. Right, it's a map that they've wanted to lean against. It's one of NRG's most played maps. They've won it every time at Champs. For NRG, though, there is not an obvious ban if they're not banning Sunset. They could ban Bind, which, as I said, is a map that they don't love. They could ban Haven, which is a map that they did just get destroyed 13-4 on by MIBR, but previous to that, won a game 13-1 on Haven. So it's all a bit strange for NRG in terms of what they ban. I'd say that they're going to ban Haven here, but really, it doesn't matter whatever they ban. As long as they don't ban Sunset, there isn't really a great option for Fnatic to pick. No matter what gets banned, it's all a bit weird. And so you might end up in a very crazy map veto, right? Where maybe one team has heavy prep Sunset and will pick it. I'm going to say the Fnatic will just pick Lotus and just say, we're the better team on Lotus. And then it's possible that NRG just go, well, we like our Abyss more than yours. I would probably say NRG's Abyss is a bit better than Fnatic's overall. And they might just go, well, yeah, we'll just play Abyss. But then we end up in this very weird situation where both teams are just kind of, you know, living in this spot. And then I do think someone will ban Sunset here. I've said Fnatic will, and the NRG then ban Bind, because that's a pretty obvious option for them. And then you're left with a weird Ascent. And this would be a very weird map veto, right? Where both teams come away from it thinking that they could probably win on every single map if this was the case. Now moving on to PaperX and their map pool. And what's interesting about PaperX is they have banned Abyss 3 times, but most recently, they actually banned Haven, and I do think after getting slapped on Haven, they perhaps are more likely to ban Haven. Now, we haven't seen PaperX's Abyss so far, right? So I have no idea how good they are actually at that map. They could be terrible at it. They could be cooking. But when you look at PaperX, obviously they have this big advantage of their Sunset is extremely good, right? And even their Lotus, I know they lost to Fnatic, but I still think that their Lotus overall is pretty good. PaperX have a bit of a warped map pool. I think they've got 2 maps that they really like. They've got a couple maps that they probably feel decent about. And then they've got kind of 3 maps here that I don't think they feel that great about overall. If they can work on one of those 3 and get them to a point where they do feel pretty good about it, they'll probably be in a better spot. For DRX, though, it's kind of the opposite, where their Abyss, there's a reason that NRG and Fnatic banned Abyss against DRX. Because DRX are clearly the best Abyss team overall. Interestingly enough, they've got 2 maps in Lotus and Sunset that really aren't very good for them. I mean, Sunset was their permaban against MIBR. They tried to play it. They ended up not winning a single attack round. Wasn't great, although the defense side was okay. And then Lotus, it just hasn't worked, right? This kind of waylay idea, the double duelist on Lotus, just hasn't worked for them whatsoever, so that's not a place that I expect them to go too much either. The problem for DRX here, though, when they're playing against PaperX, is that PaperX's 2 best maps are Sunset and Lotus. And the 2 maps that they really don't want to play are Sunset and Lotus. So for DRX versus PaperX, PaperX are essentially starting 1-0 up. Now, in terms of what they ban PaperX, they have a bit of a choice as well, because I think generally they will want to ban Haven. The problem is they're playing against DRX, so I think that Abyss has to be the ban, right? Because whatever they've cooked up on Abyss, it's probably just not going to be as good as whatever DRX play, and I think they have a better chance of just playing Haven, where DRX have shown that they can be weak, particularly on the defense side, right? So I think I would just, if I were them, let them pick Haven if they want to, right? And I think that for DRX, it doesn't really matter. Whatever they ban, whether it's Sunset, whether it's Lotus, it doesn't really matter. PaperX are going to insta-pick the other one, and they're going to probably win it. Now, when it comes to DRX and what they've picked, I said that they would pick Haven here. Then from there, we get a little bit strange again, right? Where PaperX could really ban anything, but I think Corrode makes sense for them, and DRX, I think banning Ascent makes sense, and we do play a bind, a map that both teams feel at least okay about. And so when looking at those 2 games, Fnatic versus NRG, I think is very much going to come down to that map veto and what happens there. And it could go in a lot of different directions, and it genuinely might just instantly decide who's going to win, depending on what they've prepped, what they think the other team is going to do. It's going to be very, very interesting. In terms of the DRX versus PaperX game, essentially, PaperX are in a very good spot because they should be starting 1-0 up. And DRX are going to have to win the other 2 maps, which is not going to be easy when you have to win 2 out of 2 against PaperX. But here's the weird thing if we go forward, because now I want you to take a look at all 4 teams next to each other. And what is interesting about this is, if DRX won that game against PaperX, I think that's really, really bad for whoever plays them in the lower final. Let me explain. Because both Fnatic and NRG have a very good Lotus, and they have a permaban of Sunset. Well, DRX at this point will just say, well, we're just going to get rid of Lotus, and we're going to force you to either play us on Sunset, which we've been willing to play, but you haven't, and we're also going to get rid of your best map. And they're going to force them to maybe ban Abyss again, which is a map that, you know, they're both decent at. So they're going to get rid of a decent map for themselves and then be left with a map pool that they probably don't love. And so I think that if DRX actually win against PaperX, whoever plays them in the lower final is actually in a pretty rough spot map veto wise. And the opposite is kind of true for PaperX, because PaperX's best map of Sunset, well, they're just probably not going to get to play that map this tournament. From the, like, look at where Sunset is in everyone else's map pool. They're just not going to get to play the map. So that is a big problem for PaperX in general, I think. Now, obviously one of these teams of a Fnatic or NRG will get a double ban. And if that was the case, obviously a map pool generally looks pretty good overall. But I actually think that then DRX might be in some more trouble, because banning Abyss becomes a little bit easier. You can also just get rid of Sunset and probably feel okay, because again, you're starting 1-0 up probably against DRX, no matter which of these teams has the double ban in that case. Against PaperX, if they got to the grand final, it's a little bit harder because it's PaperX and you don't really know. And again, like their Abyss, for instance, I put here at 6, but we haven't seen it, so it actually might be pretty good. Again, you're left with, well, obviously you're going to ban Sunset, but then the second ban in terms of what you choose, you know, might not be the easiest case either. So bit of a weird one overall. Right now, I would say in terms of the favorites for the tournament, I would definitely pick Fnatic. I think that they should be the favorites. I think that they're slight favorites over NRG, just because I think they're a slightly better team than NRG, but the map veto could get very weird in that one. But I do think whoever goes to the lowers, he actually might be better off playing against PaperX than DRX, weirdly enough.